Welcome to Sub Rosa.
Ooh, this is a good one. All right. So a few weeks ago, we had at Google, we had a bomb thrower. And we said, the guy was going to go into a meeting and just incinerate this division, this offshore division that was essentially screwing up their phone. Right, this guy works on the phone, and he said he was going to do it. We talked about it on the show, advised him. Well, just in the name of this old show, don't know if you saw the old Sub Rosa. Let's update it. He did go in, throw the bomb, but before he did that, a couple of interesting things happened. He said he told one of his bosses, one of his report that he reports to. He said, it's an actual quote. "If you do not back me out there, I'll kill you." Period. Close quote. He laughed at the end, but he made it clear to the boss that you know it's wrong. I know you know it's wrong. If you run me out there saying it's wrong, in other words, and then don't provide me cover, I got receipts, and I'm gonna light everybody on fire. I said, what did the boss do? He goes, this is in a Zoom call. He got a nervous look on his face, but fundamentally he said, I won't get out there and moderate your position. I'll back your play. Okay, their main boss, he checked to make sure and CYA, he said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. I've got the other buy-in from my direct report, so I'm not speaking out of turn. This is what I'm going to do today at 1:30. And the main boss, their big boss, said, good, fuck him. Period, close quote. So he goes, he's ready to march into this meeting. This is about 5 days ago. At 1:30, march into this meeting and incinerate this group. And the group pulls an act of jujitsu. And at 1 o'clock, declines to attend the meeting. They drop off the invite. So now, where he is now is, how do I deal with this? Right? Like they have in the Bad Boss Brief land, in the Sub Rosa land, what they have. What is that old hippie poster from the 60s? What if they gave a war and nobody came? They've decided we're going to sit this one out. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, but we are not going to play a game that we think we're going to lose. And he's like, what do I do? And I go, you know what? Let me ask Steph.
That's a tough one. Here. I think that the first thing he needs to do is to get some of this stuff in writing. Mm-hmm. So he needs to have a paper trail. You're talking about him having Zoom conversations, but there needs to be a paper trail as to how to hold this rogue group accountable. Mm-hmm. So presumably there are things that are not being done, right? Either processes that are not being followed, deliverables that are not being done on time. There must be some outward sign of failure or difficulty. Mm-hmm. And so he needs to figure out how to document those outward signs of failure or difficulty so that he can move things forward, right? Because choosing not to participate in a call that you suspect or know is going to be deleterious to your career is one move, but it's a very short-term move because, right. And so he should strategize with his boss. But I want to name something that I think is really interesting. Everyone you've talked about in this scenario, and of course, I don't know any of these people, are male. And you've used really martial language. You've talked about a bomb thrower. You've talked about he's going to kill him. Incendiary speech. Everything has been so warlike. It's really interesting. And I imagine that this is language that you are getting from him. Right. And
he's former military.
Well, and I think it is interesting that we have used this language so easily when we're talking about difficulties. And the other thing, I mean, to bring up an actual war, I was listening to Ezra Klein's been doing a really excellent series of podcasts on Israel and Hamas and the war in Palestine. And I've been listening to this ongoing series, and he was talking to an Israeli general who was going into great detail about the fact that the Israeli military knew what Hamas was planning. Yeah. And the people on the ground ran it up the flagpole over and over again, not just once. They said, this is what Hamas has a plan. And the generals and the people in power said, no, they're never going to do that. And then up from the chain of command was, they're now doing exercises on the plan that you said they would never do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think since we're talking about warfare, there are serious consequences when someone who is on the ground, who is in the, on the front lines, whatever analogy you want to use, says to the people in power, you need to listen to what it is that I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? And you need to pay attention. And when I was listening to that, I was also thinking like there's an application of this into the work world, which is sometimes people say this is a problem, right? This piece of engine is going to fail and this plane is going to fall out of the sky and no one listens to that person, right? Yeah. And so I think number one, maybe have your friend think about whether or not that sort of warfare military language is always serving him. Mm-hmm. And then second, use that analogy to say to his leaders, how do we make it so that there's a way of proving that these people need to be doing their jobs in a different way so that their escape is not something as simple as refusing to participate in a Zoom call.
That's good. That's good advice. He anticipating that, he has run simulations on everything that they would push back on, all 10 things, like 10 things. And he has run the simulations on his own time and showed how he ran them, which is how they run them. He showed how they failed, which is what they've been doing, failing. And then he showed how to improve them. In other words, how to run them so they don't fail. He's presented it here, like next to each other. He sent that out to the group meeting that they declined to attend. So they are now completely silent. What I suspect, and this is going to be an incredible thing, we'll follow this story. What I suspect is that, because this is Google, so it's no surprise, they will choose to either completely ignore what he said, because we're talking about a whole division. We're talking about 20 people. And if you know what Google pays, we're talking about a sizable budget. People who've been bumping around for 2 years and haven't figured this out. They will either imperil themselves by saying, you know what, he's right, we didn't get it, sorry, let us run these sims this way. Or they'll do what I suspect. In my head, I've taken a casual bet, which is that they just choose to ignore it. Well, and I said to him, if they ignore it, what will you do? He said, because at that point, he's like, I can't make any purchase here. I guess I just collect a paycheck and just participate in the failure or leave. And he goes, I'll start looking for another job.
One thing he might want to think about, though, if he were a client of mine and I was talking to him, I might invite him to explore whether his style is serving him. Right? If you have to threaten to kill your boss to get him to back your play, you have a communication problem.
Well, he said he was laughing when he said it, and his boss laughed. And then I asked nervously, and he was like, yeah.
If you have to threaten, if you have to go to your boss and say, I have the receipts, I have the email chain, you have to do this. Yep. And sometimes that's necessary. Right? I mean, I have thrown down and been a hard ass in conversations with bosses for sure.
Right.
But if it could also be worth looking at his communication style, and is there something that he could do a little bit more skillfully before, because he doesn't want to, wherever you go, there you are. You don't want him to be telling you a year from now when he's at Amazon or Meta or whatever and coming back to you with another situation.
Right. Correct. Well, he did take a bit of my advice straight out of the heart of this show. He read me what he was going to send, and he said, your attempts to fix what you've screwed up, he used the word insignificant. And I go, don't use that word. Don't use that word. He goes, what word would be better? I said, meaningful. Your changes haven't been meaningful. And he goes, I will. And he changed it and used the word meaningful. And we could debate probably forever the benefit of insignificant versus meaningful. But I think your ear tells you that probably meaningful hurts a little bit less.
And also recognizing, pick your battles, right? There are a lot of people, particularly a lot of men in high tech, men that have been in the military, who are very attached to the respect that they perceive that they are being given by the people around them. And if you question if those people, and it can be women as well, but people who are very attuned to respect from other people, maybe carry some wounds from their past, that is going to be them's fighting words. Right? You're going to get somebody's hackles up. And so pick your battles. If you're going to disrespect someone and make it a strategic choice, don't do it gratuitously. Because that is going to, like
you're making enemies.
Right. And if you need to make enemies, if you need to choose to do that, then do it intentionally. Don't do it just because you want to, this is not a video game where you get extra points for being an asshole.
Yep. I've said that too. Because, he's got a propensity for it. So I want to cover all the bases. It's good advice. Thank you.
Exactly. All right. Well, if you would like to hear our advice, send us an email on your question and we'll cover it at Sub Rosa. Send it to WTF@badbossbrief.com. I will read it and we will answer your question soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Adios.